Dan Orlovsky, who is committed to his appearance here on Mad Dog Unleashed. Now, yesterday, or 2 days ago, we were talking about Dan's skill set at the in Orlando at the Pro Bowl day.
It's called the Pro Bowl, Mad Dog.
Whatever it might be. About you in a pair of jeans and everything else and shoes, throwing balls through tires, and you did a superb job. And they wanted to play that. And they wanted comments. And obviously they don't want comments about how great Dan Orlovsky is. They want comments about me having fun with Orlovsky. So Stephen A. takes a pass, throws it in my hands.
He takes the easy way out?
He leaves it in my hands, and I said the word that you don't like. I won't repeat it here because I want to have a nice little conversation.
You called me a scrub.
I did. And then I didn't think anything of it, but my son, Colin Russo, texted me, and he said, Mr. Orlovsky, Dad, is not a fan because you tweeted something at 9:07.
Yeah, right after you said
7 minutes. Now, so let me make an official apology. If, in fact, that bothered you, and it seemed like it did.
It struck a nerve immediately, of course. So I
apologize.
You're the man.
Why did it struck a nerve?
I thought you asked me on to apologize. This was a previously set interview?
Yes, it was.
Dang it. Why did it strike a nerve?
But you didn't bail out, so you came here and did the interview. Now, why?
Listen, you're Mad Dog. I love you. You're the man. Why did it strike a nerve? Is that your question to me?
Yeah, basically.
Well, I mean, I think there's
especially knowing the platform.
Well, I'm very aware of what my NFL career was. I know I wasn't in any way a star, but I'm very proud of it. Obviously, I mean, I think. Someone gave me this stat. I think there's 996 people in the history of the world. I texted you that have played 10 or more years in the NFL. So there is a pride level about it, but I'm also aware, and so there's a little sensitivity that, hey, I get to be on ESPN basically every day talking about football, talking about quarterback play, and I wasn't a star. So I think there's that initial sensitivity to it, and then I calmed down. My wife wasn't happy with you.
I know your wife pretty well. I see the UConn games, everything else. And she was upset.
I think the way to make this right is you gotta take me to Shorehaven at some point.
Well, I can do that. That's easy enough. I'll get Divine.
You gotta get me
I'll get Doug Smith out there.
A golf round there. But I think it was just that initial sensitivity to that.
Well, I did text you, but I found out you were
texted me that night. Stephen A. texted me that night.
Oh, did he? What did Stephen A. say?
He was the same thing, hey, it was just in fun, this and that. I said, Stephen A., I got thick skin. It's all good. We move forward. And he was like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, it's totally okay. Again, that first 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're like, dang, Mad Dog took that shot at me. And then 2, 3, 4 hours later, you
went out with McAfee right after that, and McAfee brought it up too.
And I said I wasn't going to comment on it.
Oh, that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
said I wasn't going to comment. I was still a little ruffled.
So you did not comment on it with McAfee?
I did not, no.
Wow.
I have an immense amount of respect for you as well.
You don't have to have that about the football. Is it one of those, what does he know about playing quarterback in the NFL? He's a commentator, so how dare he say that about me?
No. I mean, I try never to think that way because we're in a time where everybody's commenting about sports now. And if I'm going to have that mindset, well, people watching at home are going to say, well, Orlovsky was a backup, so how can he make a comment about Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow? So, I have to be aware of that as well. So I think it was just like that. I try to be very self-deprecating. That's my personality. I don't have to justify my NFL career to anybody. I know what it took for me to get there. I was the kid that was 12 years old, 5 o'clock in the morning, working my rear end off to try to make it happen. So I don't have to justify it to anybody. But I'm also aware that it wasn't one filled with superstar moments in any capacity. So.
Well, the reason why we did it is because they were trying to make up for one of the step out of the end zone.
Yeah, ESPN takes plenty of shots at me.
Yeah, so that's why they actually put it up there, and so they wanted us to comment. So my apologies.
You're good. You're good. Trust me.
Where do you think Purdy is now as far as quarterback is concerned? You don't think he's elite, do you?
Well, what do you define as elite?
I think as a big time, top 6 quarterback in the league.
I think it's irresponsible for us to say that he's not an elite player this year, okay? The way I look at elite, because there's all different categories. Elite in my minds is one of two things. At the quarterback spot, when you are lesser around you, hey, my offensive tackle is out, or my number one receiver is going to be out this game or this stretch, or you know what, our defense got 30 hung on them 3 weeks in a row. Are you good enough to figure out ways to play at such a high level, even with those deficiencies, that your guys are in games or winning games on a consistent basis? And then the second part is, if you're a quarterback that does have pretty darn good stuff around you, play caller and people, and you're in a good place, do you play at such a high level that statistically and performance-wise, you're in that conversation. He's obviously in that grouping. And we can't live in this world where, like, but he has. Every great quarterback that has great seasons, has great play calling and people around them. He's had a great season. He's really had 2 great seasons. So, is he physically I don't know if he'll ever get into that first category. When it's not ideal around you, you can make up for it.
They lost the 3 games this year when,
Correct.
In fact, he didn't have Williams and Samuel.
Correct. So I don't know if he can get into that category. And that category, Mad Dog, is so small, man.
There's about 5 guys in it.
If that.
Mahomes,
Right.
Josh Allen.
Right. Lamar.
I don't know if Lamar is.
He is. Lamar's been in that. He was in that for 2 years.
He played a bad game, Dan.
He played bad last week. I agree.
I agree. Won a big game.
But I think he's firmly in that second category. Whether if you think it's elite or you win a ton of games with guy. I don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be the guy that you win big games because of. I know Brock is a guy you win a ton of games with.
I think that's a fair I think that's fair. Now, he wasn't great in either of the 2 games against Detroit or Green Bay. He was bad against Green Bay.
Terrible against Green Bay for 3 quarters.
I mean, in the last drive, he was very good. And let's face it, they only had scored 10 points for the first 2.5 quarters. Mm-hmm. And I know it was a tough catch, but if the defensive back catches that ball, and that was a bad throw.
No doubt. That's a post shot. You're trying to throw essentially a one-on-one ball. He misses the throw. I've heard you guys say that. I'm with you. You got to catch a break. Shoot, a guy that's a dear friend of mine and a person that I think is one of the best, most talented guys to ever play, Stafford, NFC Championship game 2 years ago, throws a ball right to Tart. Should have been picked. Yes, it doesn't get picked. You catch a break.
And they win a game because
it's almost like golf. Sometimes you get the bounce, sometimes you don't. So he got the bounce and obviously capitalized on it.
All right, so you're okay with his 2 postseason games, especially the second one?
Much more the second one than the first one. The first one, I thought he got very hesitant. Weather played a part of it, I think, but he got very hesitant. I thought he played a lot cleaner the last 35 minutes in game 2.
All right. Yeah, listen, he played. It would have been interesting if Detroit kicked the field goal, make it 27-10, and you're one who thinks they should have gone for it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I would say this. I don't think he can start this game the way he has the last 2 games and think they can win.
No,
they'll get choked out. Kansas City will just choke them out.
I agree with that. Now, you do think Campbell should have gone for it on both those situations?
I do. I think because everyone is just saying the analytics. I think, number one, you got to factor in who we are. Detroit was a team that was dominant in those situations. I think they were 18 of 20 going for it on 4th and 3 or less inside opponent's territory. I think the second part is how you're playing that day. They were playing dominant offensive football. Who you're playing against. San Francisco's defense has not been a unit that you're necessarily scared of this year, so you're factoring all that in. Their kicker, I don't believe, had made a kick outside this season.
But he was 11 of 13 from the 40s in the last 2 years.
Yeah, so I think you're factoring all that stuff in, and you're sitting there going, if it was 4th and 7, Mad Dog, 4th and 6, I'd have it 4th and 2, 4th and 3 in both situations. You're going, yeah, we should get one of them.
Yeah, but if you get the first one, it's 27-10 with 7.5 minutes off the clock.
Yeah, I get all that, but I think that's the hindsight view of it. I think when you're in that moment, like if you look at their 3rd down play calls, it was very clear we're going for this guy. The first 3rd down, when Josh Reynolds drops the 4th down pass, they put St. Brown in the backfield and they run it. Like when you're calling that play on 3rd and 4, you're doing it to get 2 or 3 yards at worst, and then you're going for it on 4th down.
Well, then if you like it, going for it then why would they kick the field goal at the end of the half?
Yeah, I think the field goal at the end of the half, I was in the moment. I was saying, Dan's got to kick this one. And my wife was like, huh? And I said, just the momentum of going into halftime. And then I know what you're going to say. Well, the momentum of the second half. But I think when you're sitting there going, well, this is the last play of the half, and it was like 4th and 2.5. Dan even said, like, hey, we were just on the outside of my comfort level for going for it. You got to remember, 4th and 2 from the 2-yard line, I only have 12 yards to work. 4th and 2 or 3.
It's a little harder to get it.
Yeah, I have way more space to work in the middle of the field.
All right, what's your take on Mahomes' greatness as a player?
Yeah, he's the best player I've ever seen. He's not the GOAT yet. I've said this for 2 years. He's got to get 5 to get into the GOAT conversation just because of the team sport aspect of it. But he's the most talented and the best player I've ever seen. I think the fascinating thing is watch the evolution of Patrick. 3 years ago, he had fallen off mechanically. He worked to get mechanically back after that toe injury that he had. And then the style of play that he's playing at right now, it's very... I said this to Ryan Clark. It's almost like, Big Ben in a way years ago. Pittsburgh, they would play awesome defense. We're going to stay in the game, and then, hey, in the fourth quarter, make 2 or 3 plays or throws that no one else can. And he's in that world.
Do you think that? See, I think he's the best I've ever seen too. So I aggregate. We know that Brady at 7. I know he's not going to get there.
Yeah.
But if I have a game to win for my life, I would take him over anybody else, and that includes Montana, who I know you don't love. That includes Unitas. That includes anybody. I would take him.
I would as well. Just because, as Tom is the greatest. He's the greatest ever. And Tom was a different style of player. Patrick was the first player I ever saw that as a defense you could have the perfect play call, and as a play caller you could dial it up perfectly, and all 11 guys on defense could play it perfectly, and it wouldn't matter. Patrick broke the laws and the rules of defensive football. Tom didn't necessarily do that. Tom was he would outgrind you mentally and physically.
Yeah. All right, who do you like in the game?
I like Kansas City. I don't think the San Francisco defense is nearly as good as it was a couple years ago. I think the reputation of their defense is a little bit better than the substance of the defense. I think that the way that they can help their tackles, Kansas City offensively, benefits them because that's the weakness of their football team. I think Patrick, this is a game where I see a high completion percentage, 75, 80% completion percentage, methodical in the way that they go about business. And I think that the challenge for Kansas City is going to be when San Francisco gets into their 21 personnel and Juszczyk's on the field, can those 3 linebackers stop the run and play laterally? Because I think Kyle's going to try to get to the ball to the perimeter. If you go back to the 2019 Super Bowl, I know there's different players, but it was still Spags versus Kyle. A lot of the over-aggressive defense from Kansas City is what San Francisco had success with. It created some of their chunk or big plays. I think they'll be ready for that.
Excellent job, Danny. Well done. I never again. I won't say that word. Bothers you. I promise.
You're the man, dude. It's all good, man.
See you then.
Hold on, I got a little challenge for you now.
You want me to throw the ball?
Come on.
Okay. I got one.
All right, I got to get this on camera. Mad Dog, you said you could do it.
That was pretty close.
Is that case rested?
Still can't hit it. You gotta hit the paper.